Hi everyone, it's Tracy, and this is my August Roundup video. It is a little bit about my favorites from August and a little bit to talk about some of the experiences that I had in August. I was in the path of totality for the eclipse, and I did experience that, and if you want to see about my experience with that, I have a video up about that. But last Saturday I went and read cards at a charity event. Now, this was my first time reading cards for strangers, and to put it mildly, I loved it. I had a great time. It was a very challenging environment, and I don't know that it would be for everybody, but I think I could do it. I think I could do parties. I think that would be something that I would actually enjoy. What it was a big gala for a charity, and everybody was in fancy dress. These were obviously people who had paid a lot of money to come to give to the charity. They had what they called heavy hors d'oeuvres, which I would have called dinner. They had an open bar. Oh yeah, they had an open bar, and they had a silent auction, and it was at our local museum. It was a very nice venue. The girl from my local metaphysical shop, which there's only one really in town, so the girl from the metaphysical shop in town had been contacted about, providing services for free, providing fortune teller services for free, because the name of it was the Crystal Ball. It was called the Crystal Ball, and it was predicting safe futures for children and families or something like that. So it had sort of a fortune teller theme, although we were really the only fortune teller aspect of it, and they had asked us to dress up in gypsy costumes. Now, none of us really have just gypsy costumes. We are not gypsies, obviously, and the lady that owns the shop found it a bit inauthentic, but for a charity cause, I really didn't have a problem with it, simply because I think that these kind of events expose people to tarot who may not have ever sought out a tarot reader before, and maybe open up their minds a little bit, but at the same time, they're really there to have a good time. They're not there for any sort of deep soul-searching session. So I definitely approached it that way when I went in. I tied a scarf in my hair. I put on a flowy dress. I put on a necklace that had lots of spangly things on it. It didn't get out of line. And nobody else got really over the top with it anyway. But I'm kind of glad that they asked us to dress up in costume, because otherwise I don't have clothes that would have gone with that event, that were fancy. I mean, they were wearing red carpet type outfits. I'd never seen stuff like that in person. It was really freaky. But we got in, and they had sectioned off a little small piece of the museum for us. We were real fortunate, because this is my tarot class. I go to tarot class every other Tuesday, and we're going to do it for a whole year. And it's not really, it's not like we have a curriculum and a real class. It's more like people who enjoy the tarot getting together, talking about it, getting some direction and some advice, reading cards. It's not like we have a textbook and a curriculum or anything like that. But it's a lot of fun. And so 4 of us from the tarot class said, yes, we'll volunteer and we'll do this. And it was the first time reading for strangers for all 4 of us. And because there were 4 of us, it worked out fine, because there were 2 tables in the little sectioned off place, and we could rotate. I could work a table, somebody else could work a table, 2 people could be out having a break, and then we could swap. And that made it much better, because if I'd had to actually read for 2.5 hours straight, I would have fallen over. Almost as soon as we walked in the door, we started getting set up. The only people that were there were the volunteers. Now, granted, there were a lot of volunteers, but they started coming in immediately and wanting, hey, can you read me? Can you read me? So I started off, my very first reading for a stranger was a gentleman who, the first thing I asked them when they sat down was, have you ever had a tarot reading before, so that I could sort of judge whether they had any experience like this before. And then second, I tried to get them to come up with a question for me, because these types of events, notoriously, people are just doing it for fun. It's to have a good time, and they haven't thought about a question. So I try to get them to think for just a minute to come up with, hey, give me a little direction. Do you want to know about a relationship? Do you want to know about work? You know, I had 2 women asking me about babies and 1 asking me about grandchildren. So it was just really, really interesting. The readings, I mean, there was a line, and the readings were, 3 to 5 minutes tops. That's all you had time for, which works really well for me, because I think it's one of the reasons that I am so fond of Instagram, is because with Instagram you have an image, you have a couple of sentences. To be the most effective on Instagram, you have an image, you have a couple of sentences, and you're done. And for me, if I had to talk for 45 minutes, well, I would have pulled more cards, granted. I probably would have done fine. But this was a great way to start, because I went in, asked them the question. I pulled 3 cards. I did no reversals. Now, I'm not currently using reversals, although I am considering using reversals. But in that kind of situation, I would say don't use reversals, because those people aren't there for deep, serious stuff. And you want to keep it upbeat. You want to keep it as positive as you can, while at the same time, not making stuff up, just reading the cards and telling the truth. So I did all uprights. And I took the cards and I shuffled them myself. I didn't let them shuffle the cards, but I did have them make 3 piles out of the cards. So they created the splits where I pulled the cards from. And I pulled a card from one of each of the piles to do sort of I didn't tell them that there was a spread. It was sort of in my mind, just where you've been, where you are, where you're going, past, present, future, if you want to call it that type of structure is what I put around it. And then frequently, if there was enough time and I did want a little clarification, I would then shuffle the remaining cards up again, and then fan them out in front of them and have them pick one more for a clarifier. But the first guy who sat down, because it was early on and we had plenty of time, I spent a good bit more time with him than I did with anybody else, and we, spread out the 3 cards. It was a fabulous reading. It started with strength and ended with the world. I don't remember what was in the middle. But it was really a really great reading. And then he didn't have to get up and go. I had also brought my Wisdom Keepers cards. So we said, okay. I said, okay, well, we'll pull a Wisdom Keepers card. And I pulled a Wisdom Keepers card. And I love the faces and the keywords on the Wisdom Keepers, but I'm not real big on using the book for interpretations. I just use the faces and the keywords. So I pulled out a card for him, and I don't know what it was about that card, but it spoke to me of making sure that you don't judge people by your own standards, and that you give everybody the opportunity to be who they are and come at problems in their own way. Because let's face it, these guys, these people at this thing, these are executives in business. These are people who have a lot of people reporting to them. You know that going in. You don't have to get that from your intuition. You know that going in. And when we were finished, he looked at me and he said, "That was the best advice I have ever gotten." And I was just beaming. It was like wonderful. And so it started out the night on a really great note, to where I had some confidence in my ability to actually read for strangers. And then it went on fine for, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes. And then the band started. Before that, we just had, piped in record player. I'm so old. Like a CD playing music. And then the live band started, and it got really loud. And that's when I started having trouble with my concentration and being able to focus, because it was so loud and there was such a long line and people were getting a little bit rowdy. But we got through it. We finished up at 9:30. That's when they told us to finish up, because they wanted them to go spend money at the silent auction. And it was a really good thing too, because open bar. Let's face it, people were starting to get really drunk by that time and were being belligerent. So left at 9:30. But all in all, it was a great experience, and I had a ball. And I got to find I took one. Oops, it was upside down. I took one tarot deck and the Wisdom Keepers Oracle. No, I actually took 2 tarot decks, but I only used one. I used the Pamela Coleman Smith Rider-Waite-Smith tarot because I wanted a traditional tarot, but I wanted one that felt good in my hands that I really liked. And the ones that feel the best in my hands are actually the, sorry about the glare, the yellow box US Games decks from the 70s and 80s. Well, I wasn't about to take one of my vintage yellow box Rider-Waite-Smith decks to this event. And I knew about this event at least a month ahead of time, so I'd already gotten this deck. I really love the coloring of it. It's low Scarabeo cardstock, which means it's, you know, it holds up beautifully. So I actually ended up, because I decided this is going to be my working deck for situations like that. Not that I know that I'll ever have a situation like that again, but it would not break my heart if somebody spilled a drink on this one or something like that. And I did get a backup copy of this one. So this was the deck that I used for all the readings, and it did a great job helping me, you know, read the cards because I was very familiar with them. And very familiar images, so that people who had some experience with tarot, they would look at this and they'd go, oh yeah, I know that. I know that's a tarot deck. But it was fun. I also took with me, put this to the side, some crystals. Now, they wouldn't let us have an open flame, so I couldn't have a candle or any incense. And that was fine. I expected that. I mean, it's in a museum. I'm not going to let you have that. But I did take some crystals, and I brought my obsidian sphere, and I brought this lovely piece of amethyst. Really lovely piece of amethyst to help with the, you know, the third eye chakra. This piece of tourmaline was a lifesaver because there was one point during the readings where I lost concentration altogether, because think about it, you're having to pull cards quickly and interpret them just within moments for people who are sitting there, and there was you don't have time to say I need to sit and ponder on these cards. So I picked up this piece of black tourmaline to help me ground myself, and it did the trick. Grounded me, brought me back down, and I was able to read the cards. And then let's see, oh, I also had this piece of sodalite for my throat chakra to help me speak, you know, help me get the words out. And then there were a couple of pieces of clear quartz, like that one. And that's what I took with me. See, here's the other one. Here's the other piece of quartz. My little traveling bag. So now I have a little traveling bag of gemstones that I can take with me if I need to have a little party on the go. So that was my experience with the party reading. Now let's talk about a little bit about my other favorites for the month. We'll start with incense because it's on top. I have found some new incense, and I've discovered I'm really rather picky about my incense. I don't like sweet fragrances, and I like rose, but it's just too strong. So anything that's too sweet and anything that's too rosy smelling, I don't like. I like kind of musky scents. I love anything that's based with patchouli. But at the same time, I keep trying different scents, looking for, well, it's my perennial look for the one that I really like. This should be a little bit easier than tarot decks, but I just keep trying different things. And I think I found some that are going to be some real go-to users. And the first one is, and I am never going to be able to pronounce it, it is Spiritual Guide by Padmini, I think is what it says. There it is. I love this. This is very, very nice stuff. And this you can, you know, I got a box of 2 boxes of 50 off of Amazon for, you know, less than $10. So real happy with that one. And then Larissa at Bard's Lament did a video probably, I don't know, about a month ago about some of her favorite incenses. And she found a woman on Etsy who's making incense. Her shop name is, I'm gonna look it up. I knew it 10 minutes ago. I swear I knew it 10 minutes ago. Divine Sensations. The shop name is Divine Sensations, and that's Sensations, not sensations. Let's see if I can get it to come up. Here we go. Can you see that? Probably not. There we go. Divine Sensations on Etsy. And she makes incense to order. So it is fresh when it comes to you. It is it's good. But then you still have that issue of, okay, well, what scent will I like? And I have found several that I am fond of, and one that I really love. I have neroli and cedar. This is very nice. I have Midsummer Eve. This is also very nice. I've got the Mother Earth. This is really nice. I like the Mother Earth a lot. And then my favorite of the bunch is a Sagittarius, because I am a Sagittarius, so you would expect me to like that. So those are the incenses. That's the incense I've been burning. And believe me, when I'm at home, I'm burning incense. So, all right. Something else that I absolutely had to share is I have started to be drawn to lots of Eastern things, Eastern philosophies, and one of the books I'm reading that will show, because I'm reading a book about Buddhism, Eastern art, all kinds of Eastern stuff. And I'd always wanted a singing bowl. And at my local shop, a singing bowl this size, this is a 6-inch singing bowl, would probably be about $150. And I just couldn't justify that. That was just too expensive. So I kept looking on Amazon because they've got them. You can get them you can get them for less than $20 for the little 4-inch ones. And I do have a little 4-inch one, but it was just so high pitched. It was fine. I didn't love it. I love this one. This one I got off of Amazon for, no frills. It's just, you can tell it's hammered brass, but a lot of the ones on Amazon have, all kinds of decorative stuff on them. And this one is no decorative stuff. It did come with a cushion, because almost all of them do. Came with a little cushion and the mallet. And wait till you hear the sound that comes out of this one. Well, if I hit it harder, that would help. There we go. And I can actually play it by rotating. I just can't do it at that angle. So it's marvelous. I love it. And I love cleansing with sound. I'm a very auditory person. I learn best through listening. I love music. What I can hear is very important to me. So I do like to cleanse with sound as opposed to smoke or something like that. This is just amazing. And the vibrations that I can feel, and I love this bowl. So very happy with that. Okay, and then speaking of my Eastern bent, we're going to see now. I'm going to show some of my decks that I've gotten this month that all have an Eastern flair to them. This one is no longer in print. It is the China Tarot by Lo Scarabeo. Yeah, distributed in the United States by Llewellyn. It's not hard to get though, and it's not expensive. It is a pip deck, but I knew that going in. Let's see. Yeah, it's not in order. But the images on there were just so gorgeous that I thought I had to. Apparently they want to jump all over the floor. And part of my trouble is that I can't really see what I'm doing through my glasses unless I look like this, because the phone's too close to me and I have bifocals. So I can't tell if the phone's actually focusing. But look at those. I mean, those are just the most exquisite paintings. Beautiful, beautiful. See if I can find some men. There are some men in here. Let's see some of the pips. So like the Two of Swords, it's not Marseille, it's just pip. And I think I'm gonna like that with working with pips for right now. Oh, they are kind of in order. So let's see, those were swords. Here's the wands. Because I know that the Marseille style, I've got some books that I haven't read yet on reading Marseille decks, and the way that the things are laid out is important to the meaning of the card in the Marseille. But it's not in this deck. This is just a pip deck. So I could use what I know about the tarot and numerology. Where are the cups? There are the cups. Because I thought the cups were really cool. So that's the China Tarot by Lo Scarabeo. I'm going to have to be careful now because I've thrown one of the cards all the way across the floor. All the way across the room, and it's on the floor. Another one is the US Games, the Chinese deck. And this one follows more Rider-Waite-Smith type system, but it does have images that are pretty significantly different, but at the same time it's really cool. And this deck, these are the backs. It had a white border on the back, and it had a large white border around, well, not a large, it had a white border around the front with the most obnoxious copyright I have ever seen from US Games. And you know how we feel about US Games copyrights on the fronts of the cards. So this deck got trimmed yesterday. I decided not to edge it because I edged the title card. I trimmed and edged the title card, and I edged it in red because I thought that would be really cool with these backs. But these are really laminated and glossy, and since I cut the edge of the card, the edges were quite porous, and you had a lot of bleeding of the marker underneath the lamination. So these are just going to stay with whatever sides they've got now, which are, you know, just kind of gray sides. This deck is beautiful though. I mean, the imagery is just gorgeous. And the little white book that comes with it, it does explain what's on the card in 2 sentences or less. You know, which myth it comes from, is it a god or a ghost or whatever. But it does not explain the Chinese characters on the card. And from what I have read from a couple of reviews, these are, you know, real Chinese characters. And if you can read Chinese, you can get a little something more out of these by being able to read the Chinese characters that are on each card. Oh, isn't she gorgeous? Oh my God. She's just beautiful. And there was one, I think it was the Queen of Coins. Here she is. She is just beautiful, and she's a big girl. I love her. And the trimming I did really did help me bond with that deck. I'm not big on trimming simply because I'm such a perfectionist, and there is no way that once you trim it, it's going to look as good as it did along the edge before you trimmed it. But I did a really great job on this deck. It's the best trimming job I've ever done, and it did allow me to bond with the deck fairly quickly. I really enjoyed it. Let's see. Some more Eastern themed cards that I have gotten this month. The Chinese fortune cards. This is a rock pool deck. These kind of remind me of fortune cookie type sayings, but they're really pretty. You've got several cards in here. You know, this one's travel, so it would be like, oh, you're going to travel. Reunions. Typical, you know, very rock pool. They're a bit shiny, but they shuffle really nicely. Let's see. Here's yin and yang. Hope. New beginnings. And then we've got several that are like, this is marriage. There's another one about relationships. There are like 3 that are about love. I love this one. Forgiveness. I love having a card about forgiveness. No abundance. Challenges. This one's cute. Children. Family. So this is a really cute little deck, and I've enjoyed playing with it. That's all I can say I've really done with it so far, is played with it. And, you know, it's rock pool. It comes with a nice little guidebook. Color. With feng shui tips. I did also order the feng shui tarot, which was, it's out of print. It's seriously out of print. But I found a copy for like $12, but it has to come all the way from Germany. So I've got to wait for a while to get it. And I need to get the book to go with that one. So I am, if anybody knows where I can get one cheap, that'd be great. Right now the book's going for at a minimum $40. Don't want to pay that. So I've got an alert set up on eBay so that if someone posts one, I can maybe get it if it's not too expensive. 2 more. Buddhism reading cards. This is a US Games deck, which I believe is actually a Blue Angel deck. Or no, it's rock pool. You can tell, it's rock pool. That is being distributed in the United States by US Games. I flippin' love this deck. This is more of an intentional deck. You pick something that you're drawn to, and it has these marvelous paintings on it. And then it has words on the back. So this is something you use with more intention. This one is pure thought. This one is karma. Courage. But I absolutely fell in love with these paintings. Pure effort. This one in particular. Suffering. There is a path leading to a complete deliverance from suffering. Buddha. Generosity. I love this one too. I just love all of these. These are just, I love color. I love these stylized Buddhas. They're gorgeous. And even with all the words on the back, it does come with a guidebook. So it comes with a guidebook that has, you know, full-size color images of the cards. And it does give you a basic grasp of the 4 principles of Buddhism. It breaks these cards into those kind of groups. The Noble Truths, I believe, or something like that. I don't know enough about Buddhism yet. But I love it. I love this deck. And then the last Eastern themed deck that I have fallen absolutely in love with. It's the Tao Oracle. The art on this one is by the same person who does the Osho Zen Tarot. It's got this enormous book that, you know, goes into the I Ching of it all, but you don't have to use I Ching to just use it as an oracle deck, which is what I've been doing so far. You know, maybe eventually I'll go back and learn the I Ching, but at this point I'm just using it as an oracle deck. And it's just, I think this is one of my favorite decks to shuffle. I love the way it shuffles. Oh, it's you got that really silky matte finish, and the artwork is just exquisite. And it, you know, it bends, and then it's that kind of cardstock that can bend and then just go back to being flat again. That's creative. I'm going to get these upside down. So, yeah. Keeping still. The cauldron. This one is very balanced. This is not an affirmation deck at all. This is definitely just as balanced, if not more balanced, than a tarot deck. Let's sit down. It's one of my favorite cards. I love that. Holding together. So that's this one. And you read the whole story about what the marriage maiden is and the bondage that's entailed in that particular situation. So, loving the Tao Oracle. Loving, loving, loving. And that is all of my new decks. Just to wrap things up, I would like to talk about the books I have been reading. And there's only 2 right now. And the first one is on my iPad, on my Kindle app, on my iPad. Okay, you can see what's on my Kindle now. But it's the first one. It is Buddhism for Dummies. Yeah, that's focused. And I'm doing my first delving into reading about Buddhism. And the Dummies books are fabulous because they assume you know nothing, which I do. They take a step-by-step approach. They're easy to read. I love the Dummies books. So this Buddhism for Dummies, I am actually enjoying it a great deal and learning a lot from it. And I am 31% complete, so hopefully in September I will finish it. Yay, yay, yay. One book that I did finish, hooray, finally, was Robert Place's Tarot, History, Symbolism, and Divination. This is a marvelous book for anybody who wants to know about the history of tarot, where it came from, and how it became an esoteric tool, and how the people who created the tarot, even though they weren't maybe thinking of using it as an esoteric tool, it still reflected there's a lot about Neoplatonism in here, and how it reflected the Neoplatonism values of the time, Neoplatonistic values of the time. I do believe that some of his material comes from other sources, but I don't care. He gives full credit everywhere. I mean, there's a bibliography and there are notes about where he got all of his information from. And it's a little hard to get through sort of in the middle. But he's really, and I know this sounds really strange, he's really good about repeating things. And that's good because you put the book down and you come back 2 or 3 days later, and let's face it, he's thrown some really complicated history at you. You don't remember it all. So he kind of says, now remember we talked about yada, yada, yada. And it really, oh yeah, I remember that. That's good. Because if he hadn't said that, I would have gone into some of these chapters completely blind. And then there are card interpretations in the last half of the book. He does focus on the symbols, and particularly with the major arcana. It's all about the symbols, and he does a lot of comparing it to, Marseille, but it is primarily about the Rider-Waite-Smith and the symbols used in the Rider-Waite-Smith. It's a good book. I would recommend it. It has made it to where if I come across a tarot book that starts talking about how tarot could have come from Egypt or could have been brought over with the gypsies, I'm putting that book down and I'm just not picking it up because it's nonsense. And if you're going to go into nonsense about the history of tarot, then I'm probably not going to really want to listen to your interpretation of the cards either. So I tend to just put those books down. They might be for somebody else, and that's fine, but they're just not for me. This is very good. And then the other book that I am currently reading, which I think everybody should read, even though I am barely into it, is 78 Degrees of Wisdom, Rachel Pollack. Just so far, fabulous book. Again, it's a bit big. It's going to take me a while to get through. I do sit down and read these books cover to cover. That's just the nature of who I am. Yes, I pull them out for reference as well, but I do want to read the whole thing from cover to cover, and that's what I'm trying to do now. So there you go. That's my August roundup, and thank you for joining me. I hope you have a marvelous day.